Okay. A minute, I have to press a button that says got it. Okay. So I got interested in Parkinson's about 8 years ago when my own sister had Parkinson's, and she lived just across the bridge from Hawkesbury. And I was one of her caregivers part-time, and her husband was the other caregiver. And I had never seen in any of the conferences that I'd gone to around hypnosis, and our big conferences are in Boston and Las Vegas. And 3,000 people can come to these conferences from all over the world. And I never saw anybody presenting on Parkinson's. And my sister was pretty sick. And all of a sudden I saw a PhD fellow that practiced in Las Vegas going to present a case study. So I thought, that's it. I'm flying to Vegas to listen to him. And I did, and I was so impressed. Then I made an appointment with him after to talk about my sister. And I said, I need you to help me with my sister. She's having a lot of trouble swallowing her levodopa, even though we crushed it and put it in yogurt. Her muscles of her throat were really affected. She had a very tough type of Parkinson's. And as you know, there's many, many kinds. So I was very excited when he taught me what to do. And I came back and went to my sister. She was keen to do anything to help. And I retaught her how to swallow more easily through hypnosis. And I made an MP3, or it's like an old CD. And I made an MP3 for her, and I left it so that she could practice every day. And she had a caregiver then, and she'd put it on and she would relax and really listen to this, because research shows that our subconscious mind, which is where we're working with hypnosis, needs repetition. So I worked with her once, left the tape, came back a couple of weeks later, and she was swallowing better. So I was delighted, and she lived on several more months. She was living on resource at the time, which is kind of like Boost, but she could swallow her meds better. So after I cared for her till the end of her life, I came back to Ottawa, and my neighbor had Parkinson's. I'd been living beside her for over 10 years, and she got diagnosed at 39, and she was now 59. So I invited her over to see if she'd like me to try and work with her, because I was very keen to see if I could make a difference with hypnosis. And it's all about using our own subconscious mind. So she was skeptical, which many people are, and I understand that, because most people don't know anything about hypnotherapy. So then she thought it over for a while, and she said, well, you know what have I got to lose? And I said, absolutely right. So I started to ask her, what kind of things did she need help with? Well, she showed me. She was sitting in my kitchen, and she had to rock 9 times in order to stand up, even holding the handles on the kitchen chair. She said her typing, she was doubling on her typing, and that was her lifeline. She used to be in a typing pool as a job. She was still working for Canada Post, delivering into mailboxes the mail. She was exhausted when she'd come home, and I'd see her getting out of her car, and she was dragging one leg and had a terrible time just getting over that one step to get in her house. She wasn't sleeping. She didn't sleep more than 2.5, 3 hours a night. She just said, I just don't feel like going to bed. I don't feel tired. But then I'd see her fall asleep in her chair or on her computer. If I was coming home late, I would see her with her head down on her computer. I could just see through that front room where she worked on her computer. So I knew that her body was exhausted. And she also had terrible Charlie horses. Every time if one foot touched her leg, she would go into a spasm of Charlie horse. It was so painful. And she had a lot of generalized pain too. So I started to work with her. And I don't know if Christine had a chance to ask you if you would take a minute to look at my website. And if you haven't, I'll give you my website at the end, because it's very interesting. This is an interview I did with her 18 months after I worked with her 3 times. And I was heading to Florida, so I only had a chance to work with her 3 times. But I made an MP3 of each session. And the first thing I noticed when I started to hypnotize her, within 2 minutes, her tremor completely stopped. And she loved this. My clients now call this a mental spa because it's so relaxing, but not only for the body, for the mind. So anyway, I worked with her 3 times. I went off to Florida and I kept in touch with her, asking her, would you let me know if there's any change? Because I was really interested myself to know, was there a change in her life? Well, it didn't take long. The first week after I did the first session, she came back over to my house and she said, Linda, I can't believe it. It's like I've had a shot of something. So I thought, you know what? She was so deprived of sleep that I'm sure that just the relaxation was huge for her. So then she sent me an email and she said, I'm typing like I used to. Well, if you don't think I was thrilled, let alone her. So things changed quite quickly, and she was listening to my MP3 at night. So she'd lie down on the couch and listen. And guess what? She was getting 7 hours of sleep now instead of 2 or 3. So as a nurse, I'm thinking, wow, her body was starved for relaxation and sleep. So that's part of the reason why I think she did so well. So 18 months later, as I was back home, seeing how well she was doing, before that, I must say, a week later, she came in to my kitchen and she said, Linda, I want you to see something. So she sits in the same chair she did a week before when she had to rock 9 times to stand up, and she went whoop up. I couldn't believe it. So on she went, improving, to my joy to watch what was happening, because I had no idea. I had never seen anyone work with Parkinson's symptoms before. So at 18 months, I asked her if she'd be willing to be interviewed by a videographer, because I wanted to tell her story. I wanted her to tell her story rather than coming out of me. And I wanted to present this at one of these big conferences. So she agreed. And that's the video that's on my website, which I'll give you the address after. She tells it as it is and how much she improved. Like I taught her a trigger, which is to pinch her thumb and finger together. I taught it under hypnosis. So here's a true story. A week after, again, I had worked with her. She lived in Stittsville where I was. So she was coming home from Canada to Stittsville, and her tremor was so bad, she thought, I'm going to have to pull off the road. And then she said, I remember that pinch Linda taught me. I call it a trigger. She called it a pinch. And she said, I pinched my thumb and finger together right as I was driving. And she said, this warm feeling came down my arm and my tremor stopped. Now that's pretty powerful, to have our own mind be able to stop a tremor. So that's something that she's kept all along, and is able to stop her tremors when she gets tired or whenever she wants, if she's trying to carry a cup of tea or something like that. So I interviewed her, I presented it in Boston at this big conference, and I did a second interview with her at 5 years later. She's now over 7 years after I've done her, and she's amazing. So at 5 years, I wanted to do it again because everybody would ask at the conference, so how's she doing now? So I made another one, and it's actually on YouTube under her name, which I can give you at the end, which she's given me permission to. And the videographer was the same guy, and he said, I want to video her walking down the street because she couldn't walk well before. And the video shows her getting out of the car, walking down the street, getting out of a chair, and she tells her story again. So after that, when it went on YouTube, I started getting clients from everywhere. I remember my first one was from Denmark, and I thought, wow, YouTube's amazing. So it stays up there now, and the interview is on my website, the first one. The second one you have to go to YouTube for, but it's so encouraging. So I've done people with Parkinson's from all over the place, from the States and other countries and Canada, but I do hypnosis for everything, not only hypnosis. Now, she is by far the best candidate I ever had that improved so much. And I think that was because her muscles were absolutely worn out from not sleeping. So she's done well, she's kept well, and you look at her now, I wouldn't know she has Parkinson's unless she's tremoring. She's walking well, she's living a normal life, pretty normal. So that's a big call, and I'm thrilled with that. So I do follow her. She's still in Ottawa. And I've done people for all kinds of different problems. People come with what their problem is. Maybe it's insomnia, maybe it's gait, or maybe they're freezing, which is so common with Parkinson's. So I teach them a lot of mindfulness under hypnosis so they can focus on that very symptom that they're having that's so troublesome to them. Okay? So I wanted to give you that example, and I'm sure you're interested in her now if you haven't seen it, and it's worth looking at because she tells her story. All right, so Christine, if you would now share the screen so that I can teach them about what hypnosis is. And this is my favorite way to teach it. Now let me just see if I can find myself here. Side-by-side speaker, I guess. Whoop, I got Christine. Okay. How did I get myself out of it? Side-by-side gallery. All right, I'll go with that. So I wanted to put this picture up of an iceberg because this is how I explain what hypnotherapy is through an iceberg. So you and I both know that the top of the iceberg is a lot smaller than the bottom, right? There we go. Can you see my pointer on there? And our conscious mind, I like to compare it to our conscious mind, the top of the iceberg, because we know that our conscious mind is much smaller than our unconscious or subconscious mind. Most people don't know a thing about our subconscious mind. So this is how I like to teach them. So our conscious mind is the mind that we have right now that might be saying, gosh, what a beautiful picture. Or it might be saying, oh, wow, does that ever sound interesting what she told us about Diane, her client? Or what am I going to make for supper? I mean, we might have 6 or 10 things in our mind at once, right? Do you know that we have 60,000 thoughts that come into our mind every day? Isn't that unbelievable? When I saw that statistic written, I thought, I have to remember that. So our conscious mind is problem solving. It's analytical, okay? It's our logical mind, our solving whatever problem we have, whatever it is, making supper, going to get the groceries, whatever it is. And if I was to ask you about our subconscious mind or our unconscious mind, most of you probably wouldn't know what it does, but it's huge and it's the powerhouse of our mind. And do you know that everything that's happened to you since you took your first breath is stored in your subconscious mind? And all your memories, your childhood memories, your grown-up memories, your emotions are there. Your intuition, all the things that run automatically, like you don't say, okay, heart, beat now, but guess what controls it? Our subconscious mind and our breathing, things that happen automatically come from our subconscious mind. So everything that happens to us throughout our whole life is in here on our timeline of life. So if you've had several traumas in your life, guess where they are? And I work with a lot of trauma with hypnosis, trying to help people get beyond those traumas because they affect them in later life for instance, my daughter, who just turned 49, she's had many traumas in her life. And I was working with her recently with an NLP process, which stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. And it helps change something that's happened to you in your life. So I was zeroing in on her trauma because now she's anxious and she has 2 children and she's just a little bit hyper and hyper vigilant, as I call it. So if one kid screams that she's got a sliver in her foot or something, Colleen's kind of anxious like this. And so I did an NLP process on her. And lo and behold, she went back to when she was 3.5 years old and was very, very sad, felt terrible sadness. And I understood why, because she lost her older brother when she was 3.5. He died at age 7 from a brain tumor. Well, I was flabbergasted that she was still carrying this sadness on her timeline, as I call it. And then she had a few other traumas, like her first child was a preemie, and he was born at 2 pounds, and she was petrified with this little guy. So that's what I was trying to help her with her anxiety, which I believe is coming from the stress that she's had from trauma in her life. So that's telling you or giving you an example of where we work. And now I'm going to tell you how we work. So when I assess my client, let's say it's insomnia. So I do an hour assessment on them as to tell me what's happened. Do you have trouble going to sleep? Do you have trouble staying asleep? When you wake up, are you thinking about everything that's going to happen tomorrow? Those are usually the normal things that happen. Or, as I often find out, people look at the clock and they talk to the clock like, oh no, it's only 1 o'clock and here I am awake. Maybe you had to get up to the bathroom and you can't get back to sleep. So they try everything from warm milk to reading to you name it. So I teach them how to talk to the clock differently. So instead of saying, oh no, it's 1 o'clock and I'm not asleep and I'll never get back to sleep, that's very negative speaking to that clock. So I teach them to turn it around and say, oh good, it's only 1 o'clock. I have 6 more hours to sleep. And then I teach them a trick, a very quick trick of counting from 1 to 3 and going right back to sleep. And when you teach that under hypnosis and you listen to that MP3 that I make of this program, guess what happens? It gets into your subconscious mind as a suggestion. And all of a sudden you notice it happening. That when you see that clock, oh good, I've got lots more time to sleep. Then they count 1, 2, 3, and they can hear me doing that. And off to sleep they go. So it's an amazing thing to help people with insomnia and many other things. But I know that you wanted to talk a bit about insomnia. So that's where I was going with that. So I teach you all kinds of tricks. Like one thing I use for myself that I teach, and a client taught me this, was she would find, she was a drug sales girl and she used to have to travel to Kingston and whatnot from Ottawa. And she wasn't sleeping. She was sleeping 2-3 hours a night, and she'd worry about driving in the snow or getting to Kingston the next morning. And she said and taught me that when your mind's going through all that stuff, you stop it and you say, all my problems have to go outside of the door of the bedroom. The bedroom is for sleeping. And she could push the problems out so she wasn't thinking of them. And I started to do it. If I was worrying about a client that I was going to work with the next day and thinking, what am I going to use with this lady? I would just put it outside the door, close the door in my mind and say, I'll deal with that tomorrow. And it's amazing how it works. I'm a great sleeper, but I use that clock thing and I talk to it very positively. Oh, good, I've got another 5 hours to sleep. So that's the kind of thing I do with insomnia. And Chris, how's our time doing? Oop, Chris may be gone. So I'll just keep going. So with anxiety, I'm getting probably 75% of my clients now are coming for anxiety. And most of my clients are still from the Ottawa area because I was well known there. I would practice for 12 years or more. So I still get them from Ottawa. Well, thank goodness that COVID taught us something positive, to use Zoom. I mean, look at this. Here I am in BC teaching you people over Zoom. So I also do hypnosis over Zoom, and it's just as effective. Isn't that something? So I did a fellow today from Stittsville. When he gave me his address, I said, "Oh, sounds like you're in Stittsville. I just lived down the street from you." So it's quite amazing. So I work with people everywhere now, and it's wonderful. So let's take anxiety. And I found that COVID has wakened up a lot of anxiety with people. And they don't know what to do with it because they're anxious. What about my job? What about my kids going back to school? Do I have to teach them at home? What's going to happen to this new variant? I mean, we are all living with big question marks, aren't we? When are we going to be able to travel? How can we go out and live a half normal life? Because everything's going backwards again. So I work with them around their anxiety, find out by their assessment exactly what they're coping with. And then I give them a magic wand, as I call it, and say, how do you wish it would be for yourself coping like this? And they are able to tell me what they wish they could do differently. And that becomes their session. So when I'm making the MP3, I'm relaxing, 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 relaxing. And then I'm doing guided imagery, maybe taking them to a beach in their mind and feeling the water over their feet and that funny feeling you get under your feet when the water goes back out to the sea, and having them in a very safe, quiet, peaceful place. And then when they get relaxed enough, they actually drop into their subconscious mind. I do a test that they don't even know, and they drop into their subconscious mind when they're relaxed enough. And then their subconscious mind actually opens up for me to put in those new suggestions that they've given me, which are their own. And that's why I think my work is so successful, because it's all about you, the client, not about me. It's all about your symptoms and what you want to change. So that's how I work with anxiety. I want to do one little tiny exercise now that'll just have you close your eyes for a minute, and it just takes you on a little visual and a little exercise, imagining it in your kitchen, and just to give you an idea of what it feels like. Okay? So it only takes about 3 minutes. So close down your eyes for a minute and just listen to my voice and follow me and see what happens. And we'll talk about it in the question and answer, okay? So I want you to take a minute to think about one of those hot summer days in Ottawa. And it's pretty humid. And you're coming into your kitchen and you're going to make a picture of cold water with lemons in it. So I want you to imagine that you're walking over to the fridge and you're imagining putting your hand on that cold handle of the fridge and pulling open the door. And it's almost like mist coming out, and you can feel it on your face because it's so warm in that room. So this mist is just coming on your face, actually feeling very good. And now you spot the lemon sitting right there, big juicy lemon. Reach out with your hand in your mind and pick up that lemon. And now carry it over to the counter. And there's a mat there so you can cut it. Close the fridge door. The lemon's now on the counter. The jug of water is right beside you with some ice in it. So you're going to cut down through the center of this lemon. So feel yourself now cutting down with that big knife right down the middle, and the juice is coming out onto the cutting board, right? And now you're going to cut 2 more slices because you're going to put several in that bucket of water or the jug of water. And now cut one of those slices in half. And now I want you to pretend that you put that slice of lemon in your mouth and suck it. Oh, bitter, but tasty. Take note what's happening in your mouth, what the feeling is, what the taste is. Oh, wow. Fresh, but bitter. Okay, now you can take that piece of lemon and throw it in the trash under the sink. And now you're putting the rest of the lemon into the jug of water. And now just come back to the room. So keep that in mind, that little exercise, and come back to the room and open your eyes. And when we go in the question and answer period, I'm going to ask you, what was your experience with the lemon? Okay, so hang on to that. So another couple things I wanted to mention is this. On my website, which Christine can maybe write or tell you at the end again, it's the usual, it's pretty easy, www.lindahayhypnosis.com. And that'll take you right to my website. So 1, you can see the video of Diane there. 2, I have almost like a little store, e-commerce, I think they call it on my website. And my son-in-law helped me put up all the MP3s that I have made, and there's 13 of them up there, and they can be bought. So let's say somebody's very interested in doing something for stress or chronic pain or insomnia or weight loss or smoking or anxiety. Those are just some of the ones I have there. And you can actually download them as an MP3 right on your own computer. And it's called Stripe instead of PayPal. And it just takes your credit card. It's very secure. He's an IT expert, so he did that. And these MP3s were made in Ottawa at a sound studio. So they're professionally done. And they have, anybody remember the Huggett family that used to play at the art center? It was a family of musicians. Well, Andrew Huggett owns this sound studio, and I went to his sound studio and I put music on the back or during these MP3s I was making. It's beautiful. It's his music as a musician. So I know that the insomnia one has a flute playing in the background. And when I was making that MP3, I was fighting to stay awake. I thought, if people aren't asleep at the end of this MP3, I'll eat my shirt, because I fought to stay awake. The music was beautiful. So on every one of them, the music is different. And they're there for the offering if people are interested in that. And it comes in a group of 3. So the first one is demystifying hypnosis. The second one might be insomnia. And the third one is to teach you how to do self-hypnosis in 2 or 3 minutes. It's much like meditating, but you just go a little further and work on the problem that you have. So if people are interested in working with me with hypnosis, I'm always open to that with any symptoms that you might have. Or there's MP3s that you can purchase right on my website and learn a lot more about hypnosis on there and all the things that I'm certified in to help with NLP and neuroplasticity. I do quite a bit of work like that. So I pretty well said what I need to. I have no idea what time it is, Chris. So
10 after 7, so you did good for timing.
Okay, so now we can open it up to questions. And maybe what I'll start with, if everybody can unmute themselves by pressing the mute button at the bottom, you can join in on this discussion. So the first thing I'm going to ask is, does anybody want to share What happened with the lemon exercise? What did you find when you put that piece of lemon in your mouth? Anybody want to share? There's a few of you not unmuted yet.
Unmute.
Did I
Yeah.
hear-
I'm not a Parkinson's patient. I'm a husband of one.
Okay,
Can I say it?
sure, of course you can. This is all a learning exercise.
Christy laughs because it's never stopped me before. But anyway, when I had the lemon piece in my mouth, I had a rush of saliva come into my mouth.
Perfect. Anybody else have that or any other kind of thing happen in their mouth?
Ditto this, the rush of saliva.
Okay. Anybody have that funny feeling that you get in the back of your throat, under your ears, where it's so bitter? Anybody get that?
No.
No. Sometimes people tell me that, oh, that your parotid gland, I think it is, it puts out something that, so weird because it's so sour. So let me explain to you, could you visualize that lemon in the fridge? Did anybody feel the mist on their face?
Yes, I
Good.
did.
Deborah.
I felt it. Yeah, I did. I was
And
kind of
what
surprised that when
Yes,
I opened the door and the mist just came out.
right, the
It
mist
felt
just
so
came out.
cool.
And what was it like when you picked up that lemon? Was it cold?
Yes,
Okay. And what about when you cut the lemon on your counter? Did you see some juice oozing out?
yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else want to add to this?
I felt myself cutting the lemon with my hand.
With your hand, not with a
Yes.
knife, with your hand?
No, yeah. When I was acting it out.
Okay, but not with a knife, with your hand?
No, with a knife. I had a knife in my
Okay.
hand. But I was-
Okay, so you were acting it out because I was making that suggestion to you, right? Anybody want to chirp in and say anything about what their experience was? Was it different? Jane, somebody's pointing at you, somebody from behind the wall.
Anyone.
I don't sometimes.
Did you taste the lemon, Jane?
I did taste it. It was sour.
It was sour. Did you have any funny feeling in your mouth?
Not really, no.
No, just sour. Okay.
Very
Did you feel the mist when you opened the door of the fridge?
I did, yes.
Aha, good. I'm sorry, Pat, I cut you off. What would you like to say?
I had the saliva in my mouth as well.
Okay. Anne, did you want to say something?
Not really. Lemons are not my favorite thing. So that's all it's. I really don't like lemons. So
So you decided to just listen and not participate with the lemon, did you?
I guess so. Sorry about that.
I remember somebody doing a lecture and I was at it and I did that little exercise and that feeling in the back of my neck right here, okay, under my ear. Oh, it was so pronounced. And I was right there with the mist in my face, the cold lemon, cutting it with my knife, juice pouring out, putting the rest of the lemon in the water jug. Now, what I need to tell you is because I was suggesting those things to you, you were already in that little trance-like state, which is hypnosis. And you felt the mist and you cut the lemon and you tasted it and saliva appeared in your mouth. That's how simple hypnotherapy is. It's all about me as the hypnotist suggesting something to you and you actually live it. So that's a wonderful little exercise to show you how natural hypnotherapy is. And if I told you, let's say you were lying on my couch in my office and I said to you, under hypnosis, I'd say to you, okay, now I want you to turn over on your tummy. And you didn't want to, you wouldn't do it. So the hypnotist can never make you do anything that you don't want to do. So when you think about the stage hypnotist and all those people that are doing crazy things, you've probably all seen that. That hypnotist has that audience at a level 6 of hypnosis, and they're up there to entertain. And I always marvel at how do they know how to sing Shania Twain's song? How do they know how to be Elvis and sing his songs? Well, guess what? It is in our subconscious mind just from hearing it. But those people want to entertain. That's why they went up on that stage. I would never be up on that stage. When I'm doing hypnotherapy, I'm working at a level 2 of hypnosis. So that if I was working with you and you were just in a lovely slumber of listening to me and following me as I took you to a beach, and I decided that I was going to the washroom, by the time I got back from the washroom, you'd be awake because that's how light you are. You hear everything I say. And you'd say, oh gosh, this does feel good. I just feel like I want to sink into this couch or chair or whatever it is. So it gives you a little bit of an idea of how simple it is. And another thing that I forgot to tell you, which some people really like hearing this to see how natural hypnotherapy is. When you are going to sleep, I'm going to talk about brainwave activity. So when you're totally alert, your brain waves are called beta, and they run between 13 and 30 megahertz a minute, I think it is. So that's when you're totally alert. Then when people start to meditate, you're getting your brain waves to slow down by breathing, visualizing, and you go into alpha state with your brain waves. The next one is called theta. And guess what that is? The hypnotic state. And the last one is delta. And guess what that is? Sleep. So we go naturally down through the hypnotic trance-like state when we're going to sleep. So I always say to my clients, the worst thing that can happen to you in hypnosis is you can fall asleep. And I always know because your breathing changes. So I just touch your arm or I say, well, I have it recorded now, so it doesn't matter. It's all on record anyway, and I send it to the client. So that's how natural it is. And that often helps people understand. So let me give you an example of that. Let's say you're just going off to sleep at night, and you've decided to go to bed a little early, and you're just about asleep and your phone rings. And you know how you wake up and you sort of think, and you think, oh, I was almost asleep and somebody dinged me or phoned me or a dog barked or whatever it is. And that's that little hypnotic zone that you go through to get to sleep. And the same thing when you wake up. Anybody had this happen to them? They're waking up in the morning, and for a second they have to think, what day is it? Oh, it's Wednesday. And there's a second where you're going back up through that hypnotic state where you don't know what day it is. And then bing, there it is. Happens to me. Happened to any of you?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Anybody want to comment on what I just talked about? Because that really simplifies what hypnotherapy is. It's-
Sometimes
Sorry?
I say, where am I when I wake up? I can't remember where I am.
That
You
can
know.
be true. And especially if we go to somebody else's house and sleep, right?
Yeah.
I'm going sometimes between my kid's house and my cottage and who knows where else. And you wake up and you think, where am I? This place looks strange.
Also, I wake up every night and say, oh, oh no, it's only 1 o'clock.
Oh,
Exactly what you said.
exactly
do.
what you said.
Yeah, exactly. But
So
now tonight I'm going
tonight,
to, yeah. It's going to be, oh,
tonight-
it's only 1 o'clock. I've got 5 more hours to sleep.
good girl. Good. That's
Right.
That's your takeaway for today, right?
Super, lovely.
Okay, anybody else want to comment on anything? Any questions for me that I haven't said clearly?
Well, sometimes I'm in beta already and I still have to ask Jane what day.
What date?
This guy's a joker. I can't see him because he's behind the wall, but I know he's there.
Show your,
No, I'm not gonna show it.
So sometime he's in beta. So what he's saying is sometimes he's awake and he still doesn't know where he
Right.
shows you were listening. What's your name anyway? Jane's partner.
Jane's partner, John.
What is it?
John, it's John.
Well, it's nice to get to know you, John, behind the wall. I can't see a thing. Just a hand. Joe Marie, do you want to say something?
I'm just taking it all in, thanks.
Good. Have I explained it in a simple enough way to take away any fear that you might have had of what hypnotherapy is? Has anybody ever experienced hypnotherapy?
No. No.
Yeah.
Christine?
What was the guy that in the 50s and 60s, I know, Marine or Lorene? Or
no.
I think it's Ravine.
Ravine. Well, I went up on the stage
Did you?
and he got a bunch of us up there. And I used to play the trumpet. So he said, I want you all to remember that you're part of a band or an orchestra, whatever.
Uh-huh.
And then he said, you know, pretend to be playing something or other. And I did that part okay. But then he said after we finished playing that he gave us a long list of directions and there were quite a few things to remember. Well, I was awake enough to realize that I'm never going to pull that off. So I came out of the trance. I looked around the stage and Ravine was looking right at me and he looked at his assistant and said, you know, take that one off the stage. So I think that relates to what you were saying, that if I didn't want to do it, I didn't.
Absolutely. That's a good example, John. And thank you, Jane, for showing us him.
Well, she should have done that.
But that's a very good example of he was listing things on stage that you were going to do. And all of
Yeah.
a sudden you didn't want to do them. You pulled yourself right out and you were at a level 6 because you started playing the trumpet, it sounds like. But then you pulled yourself out. And if you ever watch any of these stage shows, you've got a few people that have to go back down because they can't focus enough. There's too much going on. Then you have a few people that are kind of sitting there like that, not doing anything. And then you've got a few people that really are good. So they're the people that he's been able to get down to this level 6. And it is hilarious because they sing and they dance and they quack like ducks and they do everything else, right? But it's actually given us a bad name because people think that's what we're going to do. And no, 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 it's very different. So now you know what hypnotherapy does. It helps us. Like today, I worked with a gentleman who just doesn't feel good enough himself. And he's having difficulty with confidence in his job and raising his family. So guess what I'm doing? I'm helping him build his confidence up again, getting him to believe in himself. I do all kinds of things, self-esteem and you name it, addictions of all kinds. I see you lighting up, Joe Marie. Were you wanting to say something?
No, I'm not doing anything. I see myself lighting up too, but there must be waves coming from my brain.
There you go. There you go. Chris, you put up your hand when you said you'd been hypnotized. What was it like for you? Do you remember?
I've been hypnotized a whole bunch, not in the quacking like a duck or anything like that. This therapeutic hypnotherapy is what I call it. And I had some sessions with you. That was a long time ago. And I remember them being, putting me into an intense relaxation. And no matter how anxious I felt going into it or just coming to the appointment, I always left feeling like so much better, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. And even to this day, I continue to get hypnotherapy now, and just to help keep things a little bit calmer in the crazy year that everybody has had. And I'm always in shock, no matter how stressful of a day I'm having. If I commit to doing this appointment with the hypnotherapist that I'm working with now, I can go right into it. Like, I think the more you have it, and maybe you can speak to this, but the more you have it done, the quicker you can go into that relaxation state.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's proven to be helpful. I continue to do it because I'm not diligent enough to do it on my own, because you can start to teach yourself to do it on your own, and I would just rather do it with someone else. I prefer the guided route, but definitely helps improve sleep and lessen anxiety for sure.
Good. Thanks for sharing that, Chris, because it really does help. I'll just tell you one more thing about myself. I'm just waiting for a new hip, which is going to happen on election day, actually. And I've had some wicked sciatic nerve pain going down my right leg from spinal stenosis in my back. And it was so bad. So I have a pool, an above ground pool out in front of my cottage here where I am. So I would get in there and I would hold on to the ladder, and I would take myself into like a meditative state, except it's self-hypnosis. So I literally just count down from 20 to 1 as if I'm going downstairs. And then I visualized that sciatic nerve down my right leg. And in my mind, I was stripping it to get the pain away, because it's like an electric shock. If you've ever had sciatic nerve problem, whoo, can it get on your nerves? So I did it several times, and that was 2 weeks ago. I don't have it anymore.
Great.
And I'm closer and closer to my operation date. My hip's pretty bad, but who knows? I might have been able to just get rid of that myself. And that's how powerful hypnosis can be. And if you go to listen to Diane Statham is her name, if any of you have a pen and you need to know her name, it's Diane, Diane Statham. And if you put that into your search on YouTube, Diane Statham Parkinson's or Linda Hay Parkinson's, she'll come up. It's so interesting what she does now. Listen to this. She started out doing that trigger to stop her tremor, and she has a significant tremor. I use the color red at the end of every session. It's a post-hypnotic suggestion. And all of a sudden, the client's seeing red all over, and I connect them to every day and every way they're getting better and better. Well, Diane just looks for some red now. She doesn't even have to do this pinch thing that she talks about. She just looks in her kitchen when she's really tired or really tremoring a lot. She looks for something red, or if she's visiting. And this is a true story. She was at her friend's once after work. She said, I was exhausted. I was tremoring like crazy. And she said she had nothing red in her kitchen. So she said, I yelled to her in the living room. Joan, I think was her name. Could you bring something red from the living room? Anything that you see that's red, even if it's small. Why? She said, just bring it, she said. So she brought in an Afghan with a tiny little piece of red on the Afghan. And she said, is this what you want? And Diane just looked at the red square, stopped her tremor. Now, how powerful is that in our own brain? Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
True story. And she'll tell you right on those videos. I really encourage you to watch them, because it really says a lot for what we're trying to do with people with symptoms like you have. Any other questions?
Yes. I have, I act out my dreams.
my poor husband is just sometimes like I kicked him or hit him or something like that. I don't remember the dream. I don't remember doing it. Does hypnotherapy help with that? Or could it?
You never know. Isn't it interesting? Because Deborah, you were the one that said to me, I lived out cutting the lemon, right? During that little lemon exercise.
That's right.
Okay. Now I haven't worked with anybody that's lived out those dreams and act out, but when we suggest to your subconscious mind to stop that, and I'll give you an example. I worked with a young guy who someone had committed suicide, and he was having these bad dreams that everybody in his house, all his family were committing suicide. I worked with him on a bar stool. He was a friend of my son's in Victoria for 3 minutes and planted the suggestion that he wouldn't be dreaming that anymore, that I was sorry he lost his friend, but his family wouldn't be committing suicide. That was not real. And he's never had that dream again. And it was very exciting for me to do it because my son was sitting beside me, and my son is very skeptical. And he knows his mother's a hypnotist, and he told this guy I was a hypnotist, but it's not for him. And my late husband was the same. No, no, no. He saw all the work I was doing with everyone else, but it wasn't for him. So people are skeptical. That's why I try to teach about it. But this young kid stopped having that dream. So might be willing to try, Deborah, and see what I could do.
Oh, I'd be willing for you to work with me.
Well, just get a hold of me. You now know my website, and you can get a hold of me through that, or my email, which Christine can give to you. If anybody wants it and has a pen, it's a small L as in Linda, a small H as in hay, and then the word Jonesy, Jonesy, because that was my maiden name, at gmail.com. So I'll repeat that.
I'm putting it in the
Small.
chat box too, so people can see
Perfect.
it.
There it is. All right. Anything else you want to discuss? Answered them all. Barb, did you want to say something?
Thank you. No, thank you. It's really great. I think tonight I'm going to be sitting up watching videos. So I'll be saying it's only 1 o'clock.
Well, you've been a delightful audience for me. Thank you for participating and tasting the lemon. It was fun. Christine, thanks for having me. And who knows where our paths will cross again.
Thank you
so
very
much
much.
for joining. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
If you need anything after tonight's call, you don't hesitate to reach out to us, and I can connect you with Linda if you didn't get her information during the call.
Okay.
And
Thank you
since I
very much.
live near her, I'm very Good fortunate. night, everybody.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Linda, thanks
Bye-bye.
Christine for
Bye
organizing.
now.